Good morning and welcome to the National Press Club. My name is Thomas Burr. I'm the Washington correspondent for the Salt Lake Tribune and the 109th president of the National Press Club. Our guest today is Jay Faison, a lifelong conservative and successful entrepreneur turned philanthropist from Charlotte, North Carolina. In 2013, Jay sold his business, Snap AV, and last summer made headlines when he put the proceeds, a whopping $165 million, into a foundation called ClearPath, and announced he was intent to advance the Republican Party forward on clean energy. You heard that right. He wants to get the Republican Party serious about clean energy. Following the president's State of the Union address, he had an op-ed published in the New York Times with Senate Energy Chair Lisa Murkowski advocating that America needed to stop wasting its hydropower potential. And last month, the Wall Street Journal reported that Jay is also moving forward and starting a super PAC called ClearPath Action to help Republicans in the upcoming election. Jay is here today to announce ClearPath's new policy agenda and discuss his organization's efforts to influence policymakers and energy policy advocates in the nation's capital. A serial entrepreneur, I like that term, a serial entrepreneur. Jay has started, managed, and sold two businesses prior to Snap AV. In 2013, he won the EY Entrepreneur of the Year Award for the Southeast region. Mr. Faison has served on numerous nonprofit boards and is active in his community. He graduated with a degree in economics from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and received his MBA from the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. Please welcome to the National Press Club podium, Jay Faison.
All right. Thank you all for coming out today. I'm here to formally announce ClearPath's launch in Washington. Our mission is to make conservative clean energy a priority for the GOP. And yes, I do think we can do that. It might take some time, but I absolutely think we can do it. So why am I doing this? Well, as Tommy said, I am a conservative business guy. I've started and run 3 different businesses over the last 25 years. The last one did pretty well. I got lucky. 4 years ago, I decided to give back in the prime of my life rather than the end of it. So I sold my business 2.5 years ago and transferred those proceeds, most of those proceeds, into a foundation named ClearPath by my daughter Amelia. When I came out, I thought about 3 different things that I could do, 3 big things. Why not start big? And I decided on energy. Why? Because energy drives everything that we do. Drives our national defense, drives our economy. And for the longest time, it's been a very divided debate. On one side, we've had windmills and sunshine from the left and drill, baby, drill on the right. And I felt like there was a vacuum in the middle around a conservative clean energy policy agenda, and that's the void that ClearPath will fill. So why is clean energy so important? First of all, it's critical for the longevity of the Republican Party. 72% of Republicans think that we should accelerate clean energy, and that number is going up. Clean energy creates jobs, it increases energy independence, and it lowers environmental and carbon pollution. But clean energy is more than windmills and sunshine. For example, hydropower is bigger than both of them combined. And when you add nuclear, you get almost 80% of our clean energy supply. And we can't forget about natural gas. Natural gas has done more to produce pollution than any other source of energy over the last 10 years. But we don't need more subsidies and top-down regulations. We need more innovation and less regulation. Politically, we need to move from defense to offense on this issue. Clean energy is important to win general elections around voter groups that matter most, millennials and suburban women. It signals to voters that we are a forward-looking party. The left will use climate and clean energy as a wedge issue. They already are. And our clean energy messaging can blunt those attacks and put our party on offense. As Speaker Ryan says, we want to be the party of proposition and not opposition. This is an opportunity for the party to position ourselves in a way that's more appealing to voters. A conservative clean energy approach is also more practical than the policies that have been proposed by the left. There are 4 planks to our agenda: nuclear, clean coal and natural gas, hydropower, and innovation. The U.S. needs to lead the rest of the world in this innovation. The rest of the world, the energy supply for the world is expected to double The energy demand, for the rest of the world is expected to double over the next 40 years. And America should lead that effort in supplying new, affordable, and reliable, and clean energy. In fact, we've invented electricity itself and most forms of electricity. But yet, today, we're not focused on that opportunity, and we should be. We have a patchwork of regulations that's squandering that opportunity. For example, it takes over 10 years and $500 million to relicense a nuclear facility. It takes 10 years and almost $50 million to relicense a hydropower facility. That's way too long. And we're only spending 2% of our R&D on energy research. That's not enough. So what does ClearPath do? We exist to provide the politics, policy, and messaging for conservative clean energy. This is the worst business I've ever been involved in. We have no sales and a whole lot of expenses. But that also makes us a trusted broker. We work with the best and smartest outside groups we can on hydro and nuclear and innovation, which augments our team in Charlotte of 10 people. But I'm here today to announce a Washington, D.C. office that is opening. It's open, and it's going to be led by Zak Baig, senior advisor of Senator David Vitter's office. He'll start in 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll be staffing up a team of 4 to 6 over the course of the year. We've also assembled a team of top Republican advisors. We have a website that is really deep on policy and messaging and politics. We think that there needs to be more focus on conservative clean energy inside the Beltway, and as such, we're launching a $1 million campaign next week that'll go through the end of the year on conservative clean energy. We're also raising $7 to $10 million in a C4 and a 527 super PAC to support candidates on this issue. It might take some time, but we do think we'll be successful making conservative clean energy a priority for the GOP. Happy to take your questions.
Thank you, sir. A little formatting note. I'm going to ask a couple questions and we'll turn over to the audience. We have some people on the phone, I believe. We'll turn it over as well. If you're asking a question, please identify yourself and your news outlet. And I believe Mr. Horowitz, our chairman, Newsmaker Committee, will hand out a mic. But let me start by asking, how are you going to convince your party to come along with you, and how do you break through the noise in this political season that is focused on so many other things?
Right. Well, it's not that hard to focus members on this issue. First of all, as I mentioned, there's attacks coming from the left and environmental groups on Republicans being bad for the environment or bad on climate or attached to fossil fuel interests. Our message blunts those attacks and puts us on offense. So a lot of members, especially in the toughest races that are important for us to keep majorities in Congress, are very open to this idea. Also, I think they understand that things like burdensome regulation aren't good for America. There are very few members of Congress that disagree with these ideas. So frankly, I think we're seeing a lot of progress. There's a lot of bills in motion right now. I just don't think that there's enough focus on these issues and some of the progress that we're already making.
It seems, I think you mentioned 70% actually believe in some kind of clean energy focus in your party, but there are many Republicans and conservatives who feel like they're afraid to speak out. It's not politically expedient. They don't have the cover they need. How do you provide that cover for them?
Right. Well, on our website, you'll see the polling, and 72% of Republicans want to accelerate clean energy, not that they believe in it. So I think it's an important distinction that voters want these policies. First of all, secondly, it's not a hard sell to get members to want to help you with these kind of things when it helps them politically and it helps them on the policy side.
Thanks. I'll go to some audience questions real fast. Again, please identify your news outlet and your name when you ask a question. Down your front.
Irv Chapman. I've been with Bloomberg. The conservative solution on energy at one time was called carbon tax or its kid brother, cap and trade. How do you feel about that? And also, can you name 3 prominent Republican office holders who accept that climate change and global warming are for real and something to worry about?
Right. Well, as far as a carbon tax goes, we are for more affordable clean energy, not more expensive traditional energy, right? So this is not a U.S. problem. This is a global problem. And with the rest of the world doubling their energy demand, they're not going to pay for more expensive traditional energy. They're going to want cheaper clean energy. So I think that's where our focus needs to be. Point number one. As far as Republicans that have acknowledged climate change, we have the Gibson now 13. Who have signed the Gibson resolution that says climate change. This is on the House side. That says climate change is a real threat, and there are conservative solutions that will not harm our economy in addressing that problem. Then you also have the Hoven Amendment, which is the 5 that agreed on that. I guess it was in the fall when they said it was a problem and human cost.
Can I follow up on that just a minute? There are a lot of people in your party who believe climate change doesn't exist. Are you going to avoid talking to that area, that faction of the party, or are you actually going to try to talk to them and say it's not about this, it's about clean energy and the business regulations there?
You don't need to agree on climate change to agree on conservative clean energy. Again, if we're increasing jobs, increasing our energy independence, and reducing air pollution and carbon pollution, I think most people agree on air pollution. We don't need to agree on climate change. These policies make sense with 3 out of those 4 boxes checked. So frankly, we can walk into any office in Congress and have these type of conversations in a very non-confrontational way. A lot of these things are just common sense.
A question over here. Wait for the mic, please. Name and outlet.
Hi, Suzanne Goldenberg from The Guardian. Are you going to, you talked about setting up a super PAC. Are there any Republicans right now, especially in the presidential race, that you think would be worthy of supporting for their stance on climate change?
Well, just to be clear, it's all these legal entities are very complicated, but we've launched the super PAC and we've already raised over $2 million on the way to at least a $5 million effort, and I expect we'll get that locked up here pretty soon. So point number one. As far as supporting candidates go, I mean, we've been pretty clear all along that we only support candidates that are good on our issue during the campaigns. Doesn't mean that we won't support them once they're in office and try to work with them, which we will. And so we'll see. This is going to be a different general election season. We're already seeing the Democratic Party use this as a wedge issue in the election. I think, things might change, and we'll watch it carefully.
We have a question over here in the back.
Hi, Mike Bastash, Daily Caller News Foundation. So, you say you're against a carbon tax and the cap and trade type of things, but there are a couple other groups that claim to be, conservative groups on this issue, and they support carbon taxes. So how are you going to convince them that that's not the best way to go about transforming the energy system?
There's a lot of people with a lot of opinions on this issue, and I don't think our job is to try to change people's minds on the different approaches to this. We're just coming up with what we think is the most logical approach for members of Congress to act on, and things that we can do today that'll help our party politically, and are common sense solutions that work with businesses to accomplish things that most members of Congress want to accomplish.
In the front row here.
Hi, very happy to meet you. My name is Claudine Schneider. I'm a former United States Congresswoman, served for 10 years, a Republican, Emmy Award winner, and I'm sorry I'm not representing any part of the media here today, but I introduced in 1989 the only and first revenue-neutral Global Warming Prevention Act, at which time I had 140 co-sponsors, Republicans and Democrats. I have been working on this issue for the last 35 years, and I am curious why you feel the need to make this a partisan issue when, in fact, the divisiveness of our country now is not only disturbing to most voters, but detrimental to our economy. So why do we feel that we have to make this a partisan, a conservative, a liberal, put a label on it, when in fact this is an issue that affects every American and the world?
Well, I applaud your efforts, and I certainly agree with you that this is an important issue for everybody, right? And that's why I'm doing this. But I'm also a realist, and I think we are in a situation where we do have two different parties with different ideas, and I happen to believe that ideas on the right are better. But I think that I'm a pragmatist in that there has to be compromise. But you can't have one side with all the other ideas and the other side not come into the debate. So we just encourage a good debate. And as far as I know, and I'm not an expert here in Washington, D.C., but that seems how this town works. Is that right? Did I get that right? I mean,
Can I follow up on that and ask you, you mentioned a little bit about this specific legislation that you're going to support in Congress right now?
there's a lot of good things going on in Congress right now. We're big supporters of Senator Lisa Murkowski's Energy Policy Modernization Act, and we're hopeful that that'll go through. I think that's a very strong step in the right direction. There's also some very not common sense things happening out there, like the Nuclear Energy Innovation Capabilities Act that passed 100% last Monday on a floor vote, which basically gives us a fast neutron reactor testing facility here in the U.S. Previously, we were sending our nuclear innovation over to Russia to be tested, of all places. I mean, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So, again, these are ideas I think everybody, it's 100%. We had 100% Democrats and Republicans saying that was a good idea, right? I think what we don't have is enough focus on these issues. These are just good issues for America, and they're here and they're today, but you don't hear a lot about them, and I think we do need to hear more about them.
We'll go to the phones in a minute if there are any questions at the phone. Let me start over here with Evan.
Hi, Evan Lehman with Climate Wire. Some of the presidential candidates that have been more vocal about climate change have dropped out or are running fourth in the race. Could you support someone like Trump or someone like Cruz or even Rubio, for that matter, and based on what they say about climate change at this point, and what kind of policies specifically can you see that they have proposed that you like?
Right. Well, again, we don't have to agree on climate change to agree on conservative clean energy, and I think Senator Rubio has put forward, some comments around clean energy that would provide hope that there's some movement forward there. So we're kind of a one-trick pony. This is our issue, and we'll support people that support conservative clean energy, and we don't have to agree on climate change.
I'm going to keep pressing this just because I like to. How are you going to get the attention of the presidential race? This is not an issue that seems to come up very often. Again, there's a lot of other noise out there. How do you get through to a Rubio, a Cruz, a Kasich, or even a Donald Trump about this issue? $5 million super PAC isn't much money in the presidential race. So how do you break through and you get this an issue in the campaign?
Right, $5 million isn't a lot of money in a presidential race, but it's a whole lot of money in a secondary market congressional race, right? And there's a lot of those races going on now. A lot of those races are very important to sort of who's going to control Congress, and frankly, that's where we're focused. I think Kasich, for example, there's a lot of hope there. He said a lot of good things. He recognizes the problem. He wants Republican solutions to the problem. Polling doesn't seem to support him right now, but our effort is across the spectrum. It's definitely it's not very focused on the presidential right now.
Thanks. I think we have a question by phone. Can you, just 1 second, sir. Can you please, on the phone, please identify your name and your outlet?
So we have a question from John Downey with the Charlotte Business Journal. Please proceed.
Yes, thanks for taking my question. Just, I was wondering, you say you raised about $2 million already in the super PAC, looking at $5 million. Have you invested in any? Have you put any money in any campaigns yet? Is there somebody you already have contributed to?
All those will be available on the FEC filings at the end of the quarter, and I do make a lot of contributions to campaigns. The super PAC has not run any races yet, but we'll be making announcements when we do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question in the back, gentlemen.
Morning, Mr. Faison. My name is Charles Foster. I'm with ourenergypolicy.org. We're a nonpartisan energy nonprofit based here in D.C., and we focus on facilitating substantive and responsible dialogue regarding U.S. energy policy. I'm looking at your 4 pillars, and I'm curious how energy efficiency fits into them.
Well, there is a lot of good energy efficiency language in the Energy Policy Modernization Act that was rolled in there by Senator Portman, and we're supportive of that. So our planks are really a starting point. Energy is a big, complicated space, and you got to start somewhere. We feel like there's a lot of good movement on efficiency today, whereas some of the other planks that we've laid out, pillars that we've laid out, are overlooked. So you can expect our policy set to evolve over time as needs change.
Thanks. Question right here.
Doug Obie, Inside EPA Climate. Just to clarify, I think I got this earlier, but is the group opposed to EPA greenhouse gas regulations? Or does the group not have a position on that? Or to put it another way, you would support candidates who oppose the regulations?
Well, again, thinking about what Speaker Ryan said, we want to be a party of proposition, not opposition. And so, no, we don't think that the EPA structure is, the Clean Power Plan is ideal, but we'd rather see a more conservative approach based on innovation and free markets and less regulation. So we just want to have that debate. So we're really working on, just to be quite honest, we're working on the right side of the aisle. We don't want this to be it's a very lopsided debate right now. And we don't think that that's good for our party, and we don't think that's good for the country.
I'm not sure what you mean. That you oppose the EPA.
Yeah, so hold on 1 second. I'm going to pass the mic to her.
I'm sure. I just want to. Maybe others understood, but I didn't. So you oppose the EPA regulations as they are currently proposed?
I think there's a much better alternative to those regulations, yes.
Involving EPA regulations? Is it EPA regulations in general,
I'm speaking specifically about the Clean Power Plan. We think there's a better alternative to the Clean Power Plan. Which is some of the things that I've laid out earlier, and I think if you go to our website, you'll see a whole host of policies and principles by which we choose those policies.
Thank you. Gentleman here.
Greg Gordon, Charlotte Observer. Mr. Faison, can you explain why solar is not in your clean energy package at all? Not even mentioned.
Right. Well, if you look at MIT and a lot of their econometric studies on solar and wind, look, we're not against solar and wind. We think they're an important part of the solution, but they have limits. After a certain amount of penetration into the market, they become more expensive because of the amount of backup power that they need. You're not just shaving power at peak demand. You need to have, if you have too much wind blowing at night, that creates a whole huge problem for all the other energy sources, right? Until we have reliable backup and batteries, which we don't have at a cost-effective basis yet. So again, if you look at our plank, we're really trying to look at these sources that are kind of overlooked. And again, solar and wind are smaller than hydro, which is a completely overlooked resource, right? So I'm a business guy, and I kind of like to fill the needs of the marketplace, and I feel like that's what we're trying to do here.
This gentleman over here.
So Canada actually has 59% hydropower right now. Oh yes, Prab Singh. I'm from Purana Energy. So hydro power right now is 59% Canada. I just want to make sure. They actually have no coal, maybe 13 or 14%, nothing coal. So Obama has used solar agenda, energy efficiency agenda to actually get rid of climate change, which is still struggling at 1.5%. When are we going to learn from our neighbors that hydro is the source? There are right now 54,000 non-powered dams in U.S. Take off the FERC for 5 years, and we can power all of them up, 60 gigawatts, and we will double our renewable energy assets at this point right now. I think it's obviously understandable that hydropower is leading. Africa has 80% hydropower. Afghanistan has 99% hydropower. Everything is hydro in Afghanistan. When are you going to learn? Seriously.
I need to put you on the mic. I I couldn't have said that better myself. In fact, I think we should import hydro from Canada at 3 cents a kilowatt hour, and we're doing that now. But the regulations around that are just really, really difficult.
Hi, Jim Pierbon here for the MacArthur Foundation and Fresh Energy. Fast forward, Jay, a year from now, and where do you think your strategic plan will be in terms of at least planting seeds for cleaner energy policies on the Hill?
Right. The seeds are planted. I mean, how will they grow? How will the seeds grow? Hard to predict Washington, D.C., isn't it? I think we're going to be successful. I think if you look at where we were 6 months ago and where we are today, I'm seeing a huge move, a lot more openness to this. Voters care much more about this. Candidates care more about this. Members of Congress. We've got 3 important bills, in Congress right now on clean energy. I expect that we'll see more. We are, I built my business based on going in and asking customers what they wanted and reacting to that, and that's kind of what we do. We ride the horse that's running, and I think predicting sort of long-term outcomes in this fight is going to be difficult to do. We just want to see incremental progress build on itself, and we want to help facilitate that.
Let's go to the front row, Jennifer.
Thanks. Jennifer Deloy with Bloomberg News. So you mentioned that you'll only support candidates that are good on your issue during the campaigns. You talked about kind of having a bigger bang for your buck and at the local level. But when you talk about the presidential candidates right now, you talk about Rubio and Kasich, who obviously aren't in front-runner status. If waiting to the primary is something it looks like you're going to do, I mean, are you squandering kind of your chance now to make sure that the top Republican candidate, the nominee, is someone who really believes the things that you believe should be important?
Yeah, I don't think I'm a big enough dog in that fight to have that kind of outcome. But we can make a difference at the congressional level. Presidential races are huge, big money races. And we just have to make wise investments. We don't have a limitless amount of capital to throw around, and we just have to do the best we can with what we've got.
The second row here in the middle row.
Thank you. My name is Julian Spector with CityLab. I'm wondering, what do you think your approach will do differently from past efforts to get conservatives on board with clean energy and climate change?
To be honest with you, I'm not aware of many that have done it at scale. I think there are a lot of small, incremental efforts, a lot of little things going on. To be quiet, but I'm just being honest. I haven't seen a large-scale effort that was highly targeted and led from the front. Meaning, this is my job. I'm in the building, and got a great team. So I think we're unique, and I think we'll be successful.
So I'll follow up. You're announcing a DC office and you've got staff here, but how often are you going to actually be in the Capitol building, like you just said, because you are the face of this group?
I might be on that airplane as much as Senator Tillis is coming up from Charlotte. Maybe, but it'll be close. We'll see who gets more frequent flyer miles.
Yes, sir.
Greg Gordon again from Charlotte. Are you going to be running negative ads or only positive? This is mostly about advertising through the super PAC, right? And also, is the critical juncture or the biggest impact that you can have in some of these Republican primary races?
We're not going to work against Republicans, and right now we're planning on running only positive. But we'll release more information on our political activities at a later date.
So just to make clear, if there's a conservative Democrat out there who maybe believes in the same kind of causes you do and the approach towards those causes, you're not going to back that Democrat because of party?
That's correct.
Very blunt answers today. Here in the front row again.
I'm not a very good politician, so.
Claudine Schneider, I commend you on your focus on the Congress, because everybody in this room and everybody within the Beltway knows the president proposes the Congress disposes. And it's only Congress that can raise taxes and do many other things that you will be focused on. My question gets to the fiscal litmus test that you may be using. Because we as Republicans would like to see a level playing field when it comes to energy options and looking for the least cost options, as you had said earlier. Right now, $5 trillion taxpayer funding goes to subsidies for fossil fuels. How do we reduce the deficit and continue the subsidies for fossil fuels and move forward on alternatives?
I'd be all in favor of taking out those subsidies in a level playing field. Ronald Reagan wasn't successful doing it, so I don't know that we will be, but I would certainly be in favor of it.
We have a question by phone. Please again announce your name and outlet, please.
We have a follow-up question from John Downey with the Charlotte Business Journal. Please proceed with your question.
Yes, I just want to get something clear on this $1 million digital campaign you're talking about. Is that part of your ClearPath.org organization, your educational sort of organization, or is that part of the PAC money?
This is part of our C3. So if it's informational, we're not lobbying for a specific bill or a candidate, then it's generally going to fall under the C3 designation.
And are we going to see that largely, when you say a digital campaign, do you mean largely through social media and online?
There are about 10 major publications that we'll be doing advertising, digital advertising with here inside the Beltway, and some social media efforts around that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to follow up again on some of the questions that have been here about the political nature of this. Compromise is something you have to do to get something done, it seems, in this town. If we have a Republican Congress, Democratic president, don't you feel like you have to work in some way with the other side to try to get some legislation through that supports your causes?
Absolutely. But I think when our side doesn't have a suite of ideas for the debate or the compromise, then you're probably not likely to have a compromise. So I think we have to build from the right in order to have the compromise.
Thank you. Any other questions from the room? Gentleman here again.
Yes, so I'm curious.
Sorry, 1 second. Wait for the mic, please. Thank you.
So I'm curious, is there a way we can somehow overturn the deregulation on utilities? Because utilities hate solar. They really do. And I know that because I have worked with utilities. So I really think that, we should stop deregulating them because they will go for hydro, because a lot of the utilities just own hydro. Bonneville Power, Portland Electric, or even Seattle City Light. I mean, I think that's one thing we need to do. Do you think we can somehow stop, deregulating them anymore?
Well, a lot of that is state level work, right? Most of those utilities are regulated at the state level. We think there's a lot of things that we can do inside of FERC. So instead of having dam approvals that happen at 4 or 5 different agencies, for example, for a nuclear process right now, there's 57 different pathways to regulation on a relicensing project, for example. I think we can consolidate that effort. So same thing on utilities. I think there's some work around the edges that we can do to streamline at the national level, but at this time we're not sort of engaging in those state level, independent system operator type and regulated utility type debates.
We have a lot more questions all of a sudden that popped up. So here we go. Jennifer again.
Just real quickly, you've mentioned a lot of renewable energy, but you haven't mentioned CCS. Do you see a political will around CCS? What does it take to happen, and what's your support for it?
That's a great question, because we've just recently dived into that, and you'll probably be seeing some more about that come out soon from us, which probably will be pretty interesting, I think. I think CCS is a new technology. I think it's one that only the United States is truly going to develop and lead in. We have 2 that are being that are trying to be open right now. They're very expensive, and they're the timelines have been broken and the budgets have been busted. but they're the first. And in these important technologies, usually the first don't hit the timeline or the budget. So you have to stick with it. And this is where this is where our country needs to get focused and get determined and do what we've always done and power through these big industrial challenges. So we think that CCS is a very important part of the mix. If you look at India doubling their coal in the last 5 or 6 years, that stat might not be right, but they're not getting off coal anytime soon. So what are we going to do about that? We're going to get them to switch to solar panels and just take down all of those assets, those depreciated assets? I don't think so. So we have to innovate, and I think there's a huge opportunity to do that.
Sir?
Yeah, Terry Hill with the Passive House Institute, and my bias is energy efficient buildings, right? But one of the things that I think is a Republican issue that's not getting much talk or spoken about is the vulnerability of the existing grid to attack. And I really think that should be folded into this whole discussion. Will you bring that in?
We think we agree with you, but again, we're a team of 10 going to a team of 15, and we have to make priorities. There is an article about that on our website. It's not something that we're actively working on at this time, but we probably will be down the road.
Sir.
Hi, Jim Pirvon again from Fresh Energy and the MacArthur Foundation. Jay, can you give us 2 or 3 or even better 4 examples of how you want to streamline relicensing a nuclear reactor, knowing that process in this country's history with nuclear is rather complicated, especially politically?
Right. Well, this could turn into quite a technical conversation, of which I'm not sure I'd be wholly qualified to lead. I'll give you one example. Our nuclear technology is roughly 50 years old, right? So we came out of World War II with nuclear technology, and then we built that into our nuclear. We had the idea then that nuclear could power our country. We built these big light water reactor technologies. That technology is basically what we're using today. In 1979, we had 3 Mile Island and the movie The China Syndrome, and a lot of, frankly, environmental attacks against nuclear, and we took 100 new nuclear plants offline, and we basically killed all our nuclear innovation for 20 years or more. 30 years, sorry. So the NRC is built for Generation 3 light water reactors regulation, period. So fast forward to today, we have small and medium-sized reactors. We have advanced nuclear reactors that we're working on, and the regulated NuScale has just filed for a design approval at the NRC, and there's no real sort of pathway for a different type of reactor within the NRC. We're still regulating as if it were all big light water Generation 3, right? So it just makes sense to me that we would, if we prioritize nuclear development, for example, and we acknowledge that nuclear technologies were different and had different regulatory paths for different technologies, that would seem to make sense to me. So I'm not an expert, but I've dug in enough to know that there's a lot of work that we need to do. We really need to roll up our sleeve and solve these problems. Nuclear is 20% of our clean energy in the United States. It's by far our largest clean energy supply, and it's baseload power that doesn't need to be augmented with anything else, right? So to say we can't get it done with, we can't solve our environmental challenges, we can solve our environmental challenges without nuclear, I think is naive.
Sir, and then we're going to wrap it up quickly.
Doug Obie inside EPA. Just quick follow-up. Could you run through again the legislative bills? You said there were, I think, 3 bills in Congress that you were particularly amenable to.
Well, three that would come to mind, and I have Rich Powell, my partner on the policy side, could bore you to tears in all of this. I kind of trying to build the overall operation, but the 3 bills that I've watched are the most important, being the Energy Policy Modernization Act, Senate 2012. We're hopeful that'll get back on the floor and get done. We have the Nuclear Energy Innovation Capabilities Act, and one more I'll throw in there, which is I think HR 45Q, which is about CCS, and giving those the same type of government support that you have for other types of renewable energies.
Thanks. Before I ask the last question, just want to a little bit of programming notes. I'd like to remind you that on Monday, we'll have documentarian Ken Burns and Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates Jr. to discuss race in America. Also that day, March 14, the National Press Club will be honored to welcome home Jason Rezaian, a Washington Post journalist imprisoned unjustly in Iran as a political hostage for 545 days. Next week, continuing our great Newsmaker series, on the 15th, Alan Gross, a former political prisoner in Cuba, will be here to talk about U.S.-Cuba relations. On the 18th, Cornell Brooks, the national NAACP president, will talk on criminal justice reform. Now, Mr. Faison, I know you outlined your approach today, but I assume you might have a message for others out there who believe in the same cause. What should others be doing to complement your efforts?
I've talked to organizational leaders in the nonprofit sector. I've talked to CEOs. I've talked to political leaders, and there's many that want to come out and boldly solve for some of the biggest challenges we have. And I think our society today is sometimes a society of half measures and half steps, and I think we need to make full measures and full steps. And so I just encourage leaders to lead and to come out and join me in this effort. You know, I'm not going to be able to do this alone, and we have a lot of colleagues helping us, but we need to build a movement within the party that'll help our party, and more importantly, I think it'll strengthen this country.
Great. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.